it's one of the worst ones. And I'm pretty guilty about that. I like my electric blanket. You would see why that would be. We have got a cloud that actually originates from more or less the Coral Sea right up to the Solomons. It sweeps right down just in a shallow arc covering basically New Caledonia, parts of Minerva, if you could picture that sort of an arc. Now, these clouds come and go, and many of them are very, very cold. You can tell that on satellite imagery by the deeper colors when you start to see a yellow to red color on the satellite imagery, the IR imagery. Then you know that's probably cumulonimbus or these downflow winds that give you a bit of grief. But that's all throughout the cruising routes. They're everywhere. So I'll talk about that in a minute. And here's the chief who has discovered anything. Did you?
Yes. Despite the fact that he said everything was off, I turned off 2 lights and they've still got a lot of crackly noise. I think it's just something we're going to have to put up with this morning. It was not so bad yesterday, but this was the same as the day before, if you understand. It's Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH 286, Patricia and David with you on this 21st of June. A couple of knots from the north, so it's a nice warm morning here, about 16 degrees, 1016.3, steady on the bar, so quite pleasant for the start of our weekend. I'm not sure what the weekend has, just
rain for Sunday.
Rain for Sunday. That's pretty typical for us. Anyway, it's a good start. We haven't been doing too much, just looking after our bugs, but we'll see what happens today. It's pretty wet by the look of it. I've had an email from Scoots in North Minerva, 17 to 20 knots from the east, with rain squalls, and some of them want to leave for the next destination. Amazing. I wouldn't want to leave in those conditions, but anyway, good morning to all you people in the Minervas, North Minerva and South Minerva. And just while I'm talking about emails, Pacific Spray, your one has only just come in, Walter, and it's too complicated to handle on the air, I think, because David would need to, first of all, read it, and it's only just come in. So we might handle that upper level question. He was pretty excited to see that there was an upper level question, but we'll handle that by email. All right, we seem to be getting out to Vanuatu, because I've just had a chat to Flying Fish. So hopefully the conditions outwards are a lot better than inwards. What else is there? There's quite a bit to go through this morning. I'll just pause to see if anybody wants to check in. It's usually better later on anyway. And Alan on Quintessa, if you're there, just do give a quick check-in. Probably people are wondering why I do check with Alan every morning, but he is a single-hander and he does dive at night time. So it's just a bit of a worry for us, actually. I guess we're a bit like old parents here, just keeping track on
people. He's as old as we are.
Yes, he's almost as old as we are. All right, so let's do a little bit of news. You will recall that New Zealand had a rather horrible massacre of people in Christchurch. A imported Australian decided to go berserk with several military-style weapons, and as a result, New Zealand decided to ban military-style automatic weapons. And yesterday they launched the Great Gun Buyback Scheme, which was agreed by Parliament in April, after that shooting in March. The buyback scheme is not exactly being something that the shooting fraternity, of which David and I are members of, are very happy about, but military-style weapons, I suppose, are going to have to be accepted as not the right thing to have. The buyback scheme has got 208 million set aside, but there is an awful lot of these weapons. It's absolutely amazing. There are 14,300 licensed military-style semi-automatics out there, And the buyback scheme will give you 95% of the value if it's in very good condition, ranging down to 25% of the value if it's not. And this does not include all of the what can be very, very expensive add-ons like scopes and such, and different types of magazines and so on and so forth. So it will reach an awful lot more than 208 million, but that's a start, and the next round of changes to the gun regulations have started. So it's going to be quite a saga from now on. All right, we had a couple of good emails this morning. One from Bob and Linda on Bright Angel. Many of you will recall them. They're back in Canada. And, well, not Canada. That's a bit of a slip of the tongue, wasn't it? Back in the top grade, which some of you might have heard about. The GFS, which actually I forgot what it stood for, Global Forecast System. The GFS. The upgrade is mostly related to severe weather systems, you know, how to track them, particularly cyclones and tornadoes and stuff like that. But it's a very significant new system. It will probably be called FV3, which is even worse than GFS. It's a finite volume cubed sphere system. They have been trialling it for a while. In early last year, 2018, they put in some massive new computing capacity so that they could trial it, and alongside the current GFS. It will continue to run alongside GFS until September, and then it will become the only system that they use. It looks, from the examples, David was looking the other day, looking at the example, more accurate, and an increase in level of accuracy for the 3 to 7 day forecast. So that's pretty significant. Its GFS is already pretty good, so that's going to be an excellent new tool for people. What else? Iran shot down a US missile over the sea. They shot down a US, what do they call those things that are unmanned drone? Well, yeah, it's a huge unmanned drone. But anyway, they shot it down over the Sea of Hormuz, which is really international waters according to the US, but Iran maintain their territory. So tensions have certainly escalated in the Middle East, which doesn't bring me on at all because I will be landing in Dubai in August. But anyway, we'll wait and see what happens. President Xi Jinping, our Chinese president, is visiting North Korea today. It's the first time that has happened in 14 years. So Mr. Kim Jong-un has the red carpet out. Actually, President Xi has certainly been out and about over the last while, and next week he will be in Japan for the very important trade talks, particularly relating to the US, because the US-China tensions at the moment over trade are certainly having a downflow effect on the rest of the world. So it will be a very important meeting that they have. Today is World Refugee Day, so we should acknowledge Canada, who has taken in 28,100 refugees this past year. It's more than any other nation. The US comes next with 22,900. This is way down since Mr. Trump came into office. It was 33,400 the year he came into office, and he got into that immediately, and even that was down 65% from the Obama era. So a major change there. Actually, this weekend is quite important for all our Swedish listeners because I think it's the solstice celebration time for you guys. So I checked to see whether you actually did it on a particular day, which would be actually on Tuesday, I think, but evidently it's been deemed to be celebrated on the closest weekend. So for all you Swedish folk, now is the time to celebrate. If you were home, you would be having some quite interesting celebrations from what I saw on the internet. YouTube is making some changes. You will know that when you look at something on YouTube, it automatically starts the next video, which is actually a pain in the neck. But anyway, they have decided that this might not be a good thing. They've been looking at how to control children's videos more, and this has been one of the things that has come up, that the next video should not automatically start. You should actually choose it. Well, here's some interesting news from Vanuatu, and thanks to Diego on Messatroy for this. He's just outlined the procedure for, first of all, getting into Anatom, and then the costs involved in going up to the Tanna volcano. Let's start with Aneisham, if you've got a British chart, or Anatom, if you're looking at the European charts. You can only check in properly when there is a ship in there. They do have a manned immigration, customs, etc., but they cannot fully check you in properly until a colleague comes from Port Vila to handle all of the clearance formalities. And that only happens when there is a ship in, because they come down for that. Actually, Diego sent me some pictures because he's got a drone, and since we were there, there's a beautiful long flat airstrip on Mystery Island, and so the person from Port Vila flies in when the ship arrives. There's 3 to 4 ships each month, and you can find out when these are by going on to the MSC, that's Mike Sierra Charlie. Just Google, it's 28th June, 3rd of July, and I think the 12th of July. And these are P&O cruise ships, also the Carnival line, and occasionally a Dutch ship comes in. Anyway, I presume, and I didn't check with Diego on this one, that if that person is there, then you can in fact pay your money or whatever is required at check-in. You didn't used to be able to do that. They were very cautious about handling money. We came in at Solar once, and they did the paperwork, but you couldn't do the money side of it until you got to Port Vila. You, of course, have to do your pre-approval, so just send an email to the Customs Border email address that's on their website and get your pre-approval. There was a little bit of a difficulty about that earlier on because the email wasn't working, but it is working now. And if you have any troubles, let me know, because I have an alternate email address. All right, let's go up to Tanna now. And this is actually considerably more expensive than it used to be, but that's the same with everything in the world, isn't it? Of interest is that you have to pay to visit the volcano 9,750 Batu, which is about $100 US dollars per person. Now, the transport from Port Resolution to get there, it's quite an interesting trip really, is 5,000 Batu. So for 2 people, you're looking at a round cost of about 250 US dollars. I still think it's worth it, don't you? Yeah. Oh no, David doesn't know because he was one of these captains that refused to go into Tanna in case he got shot on the boat. So I actually flew from Port Vila with my godson who was visiting at the time. And this was another good way of doing it actually, because we flew down. It wasn't an expensive flight, and stayed actually 2 nights. If you stay 2 nights, then you can do 1 night at the volcano, and then you've got time to do a 4-wheel drive trip to the little village where the people live up in the banyan trees. So it was actually quite a good trip. But if you wanted to just do 1 night, you could. And it was all included. I can't remember what the cost was, but it wasn't all that significant. So that's another way of doing it. If you've got a captain like mine that is pretty fussy about where he puts chameleon. Okay, what else is there? Oh, the New Zealand dollar is not all that robust at the moment, folks. I probably have noticed if you've been changing any money, but it's hovering around the 65.5 to 65.7 US dollar mark. The US Feds have just held their interest rates steady, and Mr. Powell still has his job. I mean, I'm quite surprised that Mr. Trump hasn't replaced him. He's replaced everybody else. But he's still held his job, and he's held the interest rates steady in the US. They're fiddling around to do that. But anyway, there's quite a little bit happening on the whole international foreign exchange monetary system. So it's just a little bit fluid at the moment. Okay, I'm just going to see. Oh, it's time, says David. Well, it's very close to time. Is there anybody wanting to call in? We'll pick up one person now and the rest after David's finished talking. Call now. Oh, good morning, Jonathan. Shay Nu. Whereabouts is Shay Nu? Over. Okay, 2 questions. Go ahead. Good. Okay. Well, I'll just repeat the first one. Is anybody going from Fiji to Vanuatu? And I presume that's sort of the western side of Fiji, Denarau area, because there's some books to deliver to schools. So you'll need to contact Shay Nu, and we will hand the microphone to you after the net, Jonathan. All right. Here's David with the weather update for the weekend.
Yeah, well, good morning, folks. And this business about soot.
Soot?
Yeah,
Soot. That was your excuse.
I'll tell you what, folks. We were going through the Panama Canal in Colon many years ago, and there was a fire in one of the very large distribution stores down there, and what they sold was all manner of electrical wire. Well, that burned and burned and burned. It burned for a week. They couldn't put it out. And you should have seen all the boats that were anchored, making their way to go through the canal and whatnot. And the prevailing wind was such that we just got covered with that. So after that, I vowed I'm never going to be where there's soot again. And of course, if the winds are just right down there in Tanna, that's exactly what happened. So I have an excuse. Anyway, so let's look first at upper levels. And to the east of New Zealand, we find a ridge at 500 millibar. On the surface, we find a high. So that ridge is supporting building the high. Central pressure at 1026 millibar. Now over New Zealand, just almost over New Zealand, we've got a shortwave trough that's creating and maintaining quite a complex low. So we see multiple centers. They're just south of Bluff. There's a couple of centers there, while our warm front plus cold front is pushing north over the North Island, back over us. It's raining here where we are. Now, the Tasman gets its share of cyclonic activity as well, all from this shortwave trough. Now, further west, another 500 ridge is building a very, very nice high just to the east of the Bight. And for those of you, again, the Bight is the southern part of Australia. You look at a map, you can see it looks like somebody just took a big bite out of the continent. So we just call it the Bight. Anyway, that's where that high is. And it's quite strong at 1034 millibar. So at this point, from 30 south to 20 south, this is over the cruising route, there are virtually no isobars projected on a lot of the maps that I'm looking at. In other words, no pressure gradient to speak of. Thus, there's very little wind. But by tonight, a very weak subtropical depression does develop in this area. That's just east of Brisbane, southwest of New Caledonia, so a small high there. And a second low develops between Sydney and New Zealand. That's very weak as well. Now, by lunch Saturday, tomorrow, the Australian high, the big one there, remains nearly stationary but gets a little bit stronger. We're looking at about 1036 central pressure, 1036 millibar. Now, by lunch on Sunday, the high off to the east of New Zealand, that is going to be centered near 35 south and 160 west, and that'll be about 1024 millibar in building. Now, back to the complex low, that's going to lie over New Zealand at that time, while the Oz high, the Australian high, slowly moves east, almost over Tasmania, and 1034 millibar, right in that range, still quite strong. So then between 30 south and 20 south, north of New Zealand, we start to see some isobars now. But still very little wind or light air, we'll call it that. But the eastern high does start to push a ridge toward Tonga. So we're going to get some breeze at that point, a little bit more breeze than we've been getting for Minerva, Niue, and Tonga, and light to moderate wind for Fiji as well. So this is very slowly going to build over the next few days. So let's look at the winds for today, and we'll pick 25 south, because most everybody that left last week, they're at least up there and possibly further. A lot have already gotten to Minerva, and some have carried on to Fiji or Tonga or some of the other islands. But anyway, pretty light air in the 5-knot range from the longitude of New Cal to Fiji. So if you look at that area in between, look at the longitude of New Cal, straight north-south line, Fiji, north-south line between the two, light air. Now up at Minerva, the ridge starts to tighten up a little bit. So we're looking at 15 knots or so out of the east, going to be higher in squalls. And in fact, we have gotten reports that that is exactly what's happening. Now Saturday, there's going to be a little bit more wind at 25 south. I would say in the mean 10 to 15 knots, we'll call that the run line from New Zealand to Fiji, but still 5 knots or so if you're heading to Vanuatu or New Caledonia. Pretty light air in that direction. Now Sunday at Minerva, we're going to find the isobars turning. It's the western edge of the high that's to the east. So the isobars are going to be making their turn, and we're going to expect northeast winds now, about 10 to 15 knots. These are mean winds, so you have to apply my little formula to that. 10 to 15 knots mean. Now that wind direction holds all the way to Tonga Tapu, and also to Fiji if you're heading to Fiji. So that is Sunday. And also on Sunday, the latest projections are showing a frontal band from New Zealand to New Caledonia. And I also see a trough. It starts at about 23 south and 175 east, and it runs to Vavau. So those yachts that will be en route to Fiji are probably going to be crossing this trough. Now, Monday, the front that I just talked about by New Cal, that's going to move over the Loyalties and to Vanuatu. And that will affect primarily the southern half, I believe, of Vanuatu. Cloud affects the Loyalties certainly, and some of New Cal as well. It's fairly broad, this particular frontal band. Now, the earlier mentioned trough may lift a little bit to affect southern Fiji and more of Tonga. So there you go. It's going to be a fair amount of convective activity in addition to those general winds that I gave you. Now, the cold front itself may possibly reach Fiji by Wednesday, early Wednesday morning maybe of next week. So those of you that are leaving Minerva, you may want to try to get in before Wednesday of next week. Now, you probably wouldn't leave until Monday or so. We'll be back, so we'll give you an update on that trip. So we'll talk about the weather at Minerva and the weather in between Minerva and Fiji or Tonga. So that'll be your update then. Okay, jumping now to Tonga itself. Satellite imagery is showing scattered cloud about the group, while a light air area lies to the southwest. Not so for Tonga though, as it's under the influence of the eastern high. So we have a few more isobars up there. And Tonga Met has issued a strong wind warning plus a small craft advisory. Now they're expecting east to southeast 15 to 20, rising to 25 at times, and the same for Saturday. And of course, with that comes moderate to rough seas, and there is a southeast swell, a moderate southeast swell rolling in as well, about 1 to 3 meters. Now, the models do agree with this forecast, which is good. Usually we have a bit of a disagreement with Tonga Met and the models, but this time everything seems to be in agreement. Now, by Sunday, the winds are going to back a bit to become easterlies, about 15 to 20, but by Monday, they're going to return to the 20 knot range, so we're going to get a little bit more wind. So, it's going to be a rather windy weekend for Tonga. Now, possible convective activity for the group as well. And in that case, the winds that I gave you, you can expect the gusts to be higher. Now, actual conditions this morning, Vaval reported southeast 3, pretty light air, scattered to quite a few towering cumulus, barometer 1013. Now, those towering cumulus, that's where you get those stronger downflow winds. So you may not get rain from these downflow winds, but suddenly here come the gusts, and that's where they're coming from. The Hapais report east 15, scattered to broken, and also towering cumulus there as well. Now they're reporting a barometric pressure of 1017, 1017. I think that may be a mistake. That is quite a bit of a wind difference between the other areas of Tonga, so somebody may have pressed the wrong button on that. So I wouldn't alter your barometer if you're in the Hapais based on that particular reading. Tongatapu, east 10, scattered cloud, barometer 1015 for Tongatapu. Now moving to Fiji, they look pretty good. It looks good on imagery, so expect fine conditions today with a typical chance of scattered showers in the afternoon. The winds are forecast to be east to southeast about 15 to 20. Tomorrow, easterlies about 15 to 20. And the same for Sunday, except I think east-northeast winds for the southern half of the group. Divide that whole group in half, east to west. So the southern part, east-northeast, I think. Now Monday, for everyone, northeast in the 15 knot range. Now the radar loop this morning shows scattered showers with eastern Viti Levu getting the good news more than the other areas. So quite a few returns on the radar there. So here's a few actuals for you. Undue Point, southeast 14, and the barometer 1012. Yasawas, easterly 13, barometer 1012. Vanua Balavu, they're in Palau, east-southeast 13, the barometer 1016, that's really high. Nandi, east 5, barometer 1013, and Nassori, calm, barometer 1014, and down to the south, Matuku, east-southeast 3, and the barometer 1013. Now, all of these readings are airport readings, and of course, the open water winds are going to be a bit different, but that gives you an idea of what's going on. Yeah, and I'm surprised about that barometric pressure there as well. So maybe there is just a little hill of air that's between the two groups. Don't know. Vanuatu shows a mix of cloud and showers. Heavier cloud cover to the north and to the far south. The winds east to east-southeast, about 15 to 20, but lighter down in Anisham. And about the same conditions Saturday and Sunday, east to southeast, 10 to 15, mean winds again. Expect the frontal band on Monday. Northeast winds are going to be feeding the band on the north side of the axis, and southeast winds will be on the southern side. So those are the winds you get depending upon where you happen to be in relation to the frontal band. Now, plenty of cloud for NewCal on imagery this morning. In the southern lagoon, you could expect east to southeast winds in the 10-knot range, although the loyalties northeast 10 to 15, and they've got rain there. Tomorrow, east to east-southeast around 10, maybe a little bit lighter, partly cloudy conditions tomorrow. Now a change on Sunday, south to southeast 10 or so, and you could expect showers to rain. This is on Sunday. Ile de Pan looks like southeast about 10, and the loyalties northeast 10 or so. Now plenty of rain on Monday, so you could expect showers, rain, southeast winds, and they're in the 10-knot range, fairly light. But again, if you're in the areas of rain, you are going to get gusty conditions, squally conditions, so obviously stronger winds. So that's your weekend. And if you were to look up and down the date line, use that as a reference point. The winds basically to the east of the date line, those winds are coming from the anticyclone or the high that's east of New Zealand. And they are bouncing into the winds from the high that's in the Oz Bight. So that ridge that's from Australia is being pushed toward the date line. And those are two air masses, totally different density. And by density, I'm talking about water vapor, moisture, wind direction, wind strength. All of that is contributing to the air mass characteristic, and they don't mix, they clash, and that's why you get the cloud. So that's what's happening, and it's virtually covering all the cruising routes. So that's the story there. I'll pass this to the chief, and if you have any questions, come in.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the reports that have just come in. If you send an email, folks, please put your boat name in the subject line, just a reminder. But yeah, let's have a quick breeze through the reports on Yit. Kupiri, oh, they're in the Blue Lagoon with 10 knots of easterly and clear skies. What perfect conditions for the Asawas and general area today. Valak, not so great down there in South Minerva. 5 boats there now. 11 to 16 knots from the east and 60% cloud cover, 1018. And just on that subject, if you're in North Minerva, please give Cetacea a call on the VHF after the net, because they, for some reason, can't copy us. They're looking at what day it would be best to leave North Minerva for Fiji. And listening to you, what did you say? Sort of not today, I don't think, by the sound of it, did you?
Oh,
anyway,
they can go.
Yeah, you can go. I'm going to get a specific day from David in a minute. So what specific day, David, would be best for Chameleon to leave North Minerva for Fiji? And if you did leave on that particular day, what would be the arrival conditions? While he's doing that, Whistler are in Whaua, where they have got more wind, as David just talked about, 15 to 20, east-southeast and 30%. And not so brilliant day for the Southern Cross going to Newcastle. They're only 340 miles to go, but they've got that bit of system there. They've had decent wind directions overnight, but now it's 8 knots from the north, overcast and squally. So that's a bit of a pain, but hopefully things will improve when they come to arrive. All right, so what day would you go? I'm passing the microphone, folks.
That's in the realm of giving advice to folks, and we don't do that. You're supposed to be looking at your weather and make your own decisions. So anyway, what I will say is that any time now, but the thing is, don't forget that next week, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, that's when the winds start to go northeast. And also that's the time that we're probably going to get a fair amount of convective activity and so forth, which on Chameleon, on our boat, we don't like that, and I don't think you would either. So if you leave, getting to Tongatapu is only 2 days. So this is only Friday. So you've virtually got the entire weekend and maybe even Monday to still hang out in Minerva. As long as you get there before, we'll just say Tuesday or Wednesday might be iffy days. So if you do want to wait until Monday, we will give you the update on that then, Monday morning. But you can go now. The winds are a time during the day, really, but that nighttime is generally when it will be the worst. So there you go. No specific day. The winds are not strong, as you've heard me say, but I don't think you want nor'easters, and I don't think you want frontal bands. So there you go. Hopefully that's good enough.
All right, and hopefully Gail and Tony heard that. If you didn't, someone can get back to me. And a message from John for Chez Nou, the ARC boats are going to be leaving for Port Vila in July. So there'll be quite a raft of options there for you to get anything you want to get from Fiji to Vanuatu. It's interesting, there's a whole bunch of ICA boats at Port Morel. That would be a good place to avoid at the moment. Thanks, Margie. I guess those boats are now going to be looking at going to the Lau group. So probably Port Morel would be a good place to miss until they all depart. It looks very crowded. So anybody else with anything? I think we've covered everything for the weekend. Anybody with anything else? Oh, there was somebody there. I just clicked the microphone. Just stand by one. We will be leaving the frequency for Chez Nou to go on. But is there anybody else with anything before we depart? Nothing heard here. Oh, comfort zone. Well, I tell you what, a comfort zone. I think that would be John. I cannot copy you. But we did hear you on 20 metres a couple of days ago, but I've got no copy on you at the moment. How strong was he, Andrew? Yeah, Andrew is in the Asawas, but certainly I just wonder if it's the automatic tuner is working, John, because I've got no copy here, but I will really flap my ears. Try again and give your boat name a couple of times. Over. Oh, well, now you're booming him. Must have flicked up the power, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose you are quite enjoying hearing the full cloud and rain and stuff that we've got here. You got out just in time. Over. Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead again. Over. Oh, Roger, you're in Port Morel amongst the big group of boats there, and heading into Niafu shortly. All right, yeah, no, that was pretty clear now. So I guess it might have been a power thing. All right, and your day, well, actually, you could probably take your net control today from Tonga. That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? Anyway, we'll talk to you later. Okay, thanks, Andrew, for the relay, and have a good weekend, everybody. I'm going to leave the frequency to Chez Nou. We'll be back on Monday. And don't forget the email is ghradio@extra.co.nz and put your boat name in the subject. Cheers all.